Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mellissa Thomas with Florida National News coming to you with another episode of the FNN Politics and Power series. Thank you guys for tuning in. And this week we will be interviewing State Representative Travaris McCurdy, who is representing District 46, who, it's about to get slashed and renamed into another district with the newly redrawn districts that were voted on in the state capitol. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him right on in. Good afternoon, Representative. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Mellissa?
Doing good. Thank you so much for taking the time. Always appreciate you.
Definitely. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So just to make sure I have this right, because I want to make sure I pronounce your name right. Is it Travaris or Travaris?
So it's VAR like far. So
VAR. Travaris.
Yes.
McCurdy. Thank you.
I've heard multiple variations, so I'll tell you Var too. Var was close enough.
Close enough. But yeah, so thank you so much as always for taking the time. This has been quite an interesting month for you and your colleagues in the Florida House. But before we get into the nitty gritty, because I'll get into the sit-in after the commercial break, I definitely want to dissect that with you. But before we get into that, one of the biggest things that took place this legislative session was the redrawing of the districts for the state of Florida. And of course, that happens once every 10 years. Is that correct?
Correct. So after the census, we always we have a legislative constitutional duty to redraw state house maps, state senate maps, as well as congressional maps. So we were already done during the regular session with the state maps. So my district, for instance, was already redrawn, but we did not successfully complete, unfortunately, the congressional maps. Well, we as a body, we did pass maps, but the governor vetoed them. So that's what brought us back to Tallahassee for the most recent special session.
Right. And thank you for breaking that down for our audience. Like one of the goals for the show, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys always know, I like kind of breaking the political process down for you guys so that can help you be a lot more engaged in the process. Or just quite frankly, even if you are already engaged, just kind of provide a little more details that you might not have already known. So thank you, Representative McCurdy, for that, for sure. And then kind of talk about that difference between the townships or areas that were in your previous district versus what's in the redrawn district.
So currently, I represent House District 46, as you mentioned, and that will soon convert to House District 41. While that change has not technically been made yet, I have already redesignated my paperwork for my reelection campaign to reflect District 41. And what happened was, with my district specifically, we didn't lose anything. In the initial conversations, there was talk about removing the Tangelo Park area, but I was vocal about that because I was very concerned to the district that they were going to move Tangelo Park to. So we were able to successfully keep Tangelo intact with the rest of the neighborhoods that we represent, from Paramore, Mercy Drive, Holden Heights, Carver Shores, Ivy Lane, Parson Pine Hills. We were able to keep Tangelo intact with communities who they are very similar to, because the proposal was to move Tangelo into a much more brown or Hispanic district. And it just didn't make sense to move Tangelo Park. So we do have Tangelo Park, but we did pick up a little bit of Ocoee, surprisingly. So my district stopped at Hiwassee. That was pretty much the cutoff for me. Going west was Hiwassee, but now we go a little further west. So I have West Oaks Mall, for instance, and I do cut off at the Health Central Walmart Mart. So I have a little bit more of Pine Hills and a little portion of Ocoee. So we didn't lose anything. I think we picked up maybe two.
Added. Yeah, you went further west a little bit.
Correct.
Awesome. And this is a bit more of a bonus question, but kind of talk about the relationship you have or have cultivated with your community thus far over the last 2 years, especially considering that it is a predominantly African-American community.
Well, I'm blessed and fortunate. I mentioned Carver Shores and Pine Hills as neighborhoods that are in my district. I'm born and raised here in my district. I was born and raised in Carver Shores. We moved to Pine Hills during the summer that I went to middle school. So went to West Orange High School, graduated from Olympia High School.
Wow.
And I've always lived on the West Side. So this is really home for me. So this is really like a opportunity for me to reintroduce myself to the residents and constituents here in my district, because I served as a legislative aide for 6 years to the same residents here in this district as well. So not only am I a native, born and raised here, but I've always served this community. So I'm really no stranger. Yes, I have a new role, a new title, if you will. But another thing, 2 years ago when I was a first-time candidate, I wasn't even on the ballot. So I really took an opportunity. It's really and very important to me in my office to be out, and be tangible for the community, to not only see us, to touch us, to hear from us, because these folks didn't have an opportunity to bubble in my name on their ballot, because I wasn't on their ballot, because we didn't draw any opponents 2 years ago that qualified. So it's just very important for me. I feel like we're still in the introductory phase of letting people know where we are and what we do.
Very true. That is very true. I remember the day that was announced, and I said, "Wow!" Like that was kind of like God going, "Here you go."
It doesn't happen for everybody like that the first time around. Trust me. So
right.
I was very grateful. So, but it also allowed me to hit the ground running. I had months before these elections were finalized 2 years ago. So it gave me an opportunity, it gave me a leg up. Not only did I have experience as an aide in the process, but with that time, with that gap of me waiting to get sworn in and waiting to see the other races be completed, I was able to go and meet a lot of my colleagues, prior to us meeting in Tallahassee. So it helped me with my committee assignments. It helped me become more familiar with leadership on both sides. So it was good altogether.
Awesome. So I wanted to get your perspective, obviously being a legislative aide for two different sitting elected officials. Kind of talk about your perspective that you've seen during that period and while you're running for office, because of course, when you're running, there's a certain idealism that you have, like there's certain things you want to change, there's certain things you want to see done, versus now that you've been in it for 2 years and you actually see the process and have experienced it for yourself. Like kind of talk about that difference in perspective, if there has been a change in your perspective.
Right. Well, I think something that was unique about me, I ran on this, I talk about it all the time, was my time as a legislative aide. It's very important for people at home to understand that for me in my current role as an elected member of the legislature, this is technically considered a part-time job for me. And it's considered a full-time job for my staff. So look, there was one thing, of course, I majored in political science while I was at FAMU, but it's totally different. It's night and day what you learn in the textbook and what you get being actually immersed in the process. So having the opportunity to work for Senators Thompson and Senator Bracey, two very highly respected senators in the process, or just two respected people in our community in general, it gave me an opportunity to pick up some good traits from them both and merge them to become my own member and find my own identity. But unlike many of my freshman colleagues, I had experience in the process. I knew the building, I knew the people in the process, I knew the folks that worked in bill drafting, I know the folks that worked in appropriations. So having those relationships that people in my class were looking to come to Tallahassee to build was something that gave me an advantage, because those relationships already existed. And I also tell people, I knew what I was signing up for. So obviously, we wish we didn't have to fight so many culture wars, but I had a good sense of what the environment was like, what the atmosphere was like, what the appetite was like for leadership, and the things that I knew the challenges that we were going to face as a caucus. So I was really, I think I had a unique perspective and a slight advantage over not just some of my Democratic colleagues, but some of my Republican colleagues who came in as freshmen as well, because I knew the process and I knew what I was signing up for. So I wasn't really caught off guard or taken by surprise. But I think in turn, you can see the results of me being named a deputy whip my first year, my first session, came back my second session, and now entering hopefully my second term. I've been tapped to be the Democratic minority whip in the next leader's administration. But I think that's also a testament to my work ethic, and again, just me being around the process for so long.
And then real quick before we go to commercial break, wanted to ask you that honest question, like, would you, given that experience, do you recommend people to run for Florida House, or would you recommend them run for another public office, or would you recommend them try to be a force for change in a completely different way?
My recommendation is get in where you fit in and be the best you. Learn what you want to do, because that's ultimately how you'll be the most effective. People, I don't encourage people to run for office just to have a title before your name or get whatever perks you think come with it, because they're really not that many with all the advances and stuff that we have, right? So I really want people to run because you have a heart and desire to serve people, and not because of a title. There are a lot of people who do good stuff in the community who never run for office, right? And then you have people that run for office and run for any office that's available, and that's not really healthy for our community. How can you want to run for a commissioner one year and next year you want to run for the state house? Which one is it? Because they're two totally different roles. They have two totally different jurisdictions as far as what they can and cannot do. So I knew, because of my time serving as a legislative aide, I was able to see the job firsthand. So I knew I could make a very effective member of the legislature. So my recommendation is, whatever you think you want to do, get around people who are already doing that work, so you can see whether or not it's something that you actually want to do, and whether you know you can make that decision whether or not you'll be effective. Can't hear you, Mellissa.
Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Very brief commercial break. So, if you got some water, just grab that real quick, take a sip. We'll be right back.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
And we are back with the FNN Politics and Power series, guys. Thank you for tuning in with us. And we are back with State Representative Travaris McCurdy, making sure to say that right. So yeah, obviously we want to definitely get into the sit-in. Like, we want to get into that detail and break that down. One of the things that I found interesting was that you and Representative Nixon came ready. Like, you guys had the shirts and everything. And I wanted to find out from you, were your fellow colleagues also kind of privy and prepared for that? Or did they kind of join in with you guys once the two of you started to demonstrate?
Short answer, no. And that was by design. Representative Nixon and myself, who, by the way, our birthdays are like 2 days apart. We were born the same year, so I really feel like that's my sister. So I'm so fortunate to have just been introduced to her, and we never knew each other before we met in the legislature. But Angie and I, or Representative Nixon, I should say, Representative Nixon and I, we had a conversation. Obviously, prior to coming to Tallahassee for the special session. And if you remember, the special session was literally just supposed to be for the congressional maps. As I was driving up to Tallahassee, the governor expanded the call literally hours before we were to gavel in to include Disney. And I feel like that was a distraction for the maps by placing Disney, expanding the scope of the call to include the Reedy Creek issue, which ultimately affected Disney and Orange County as well. So Representative Nixon and myself, we said we cannot let this process be hijacked by, and because these maps are something that we only discuss every 10 years. There's no guarantee that me, her, or anybody else who's a legislator right now will be here 10 years from now to address these concerns in the next decade. So what we didn't want to do, we know we had a tumultuous in a turbulent regular session where we didn't get many wins. We felt like I often tell people I feel like I came back home after the regular 60-day session with more problems that I went to Tallahassee with for my people. And we feel like we let people down as Democrats. We feel like Democrats don't fight as hard as we should. And people deserve a little more, right? Because I ran for office as a young person because I got tired of seeing my elected officials. I felt like laying down. And I don't want that. I don't want that sense of feeling from people that we represent right now. So Representative Nixon and I, we made a pact. We made a plan to not leave each other out. Just make sure that, I wasn't going to make sure she wasn't the only one. She was going to make sure I wasn't the only one. The reason we didn't tell many of our colleagues is because we didn't want to be talked out of it. We didn't want to be talked down, and we didn't want to be ousted to leadership. So we needed to make a stand. We went and we researched and we saw what the late Congressman John Lewis did on the floor of the United States House. And we know that we couldn't come home again and tell people we gave up or we fought as hard as we could by filing amendments. People at home don't understand that language, that we filed amendments to make a bill better or et cetera. So we wanted to do something that the common everyday person at home would see us literally putting ourselves on the line and fighting, right? And again, these are maps that we as a legislature should not have been even debating, discussing, or voting in our viewpoint. Why? Because they were drawn by the governor. And the state constitution dictates that the legislature, it's our constitutional duty to draw legislative and congressional maps. And we defaulted that to the governor because he's a bully. He bullied the legislature. He bullied his party. He bullied leadership into saying, okay, well, he's not going to accept any maps that we draw as our constitutional duty dictates us to do. So we allowed the governor to draw his own maps, and then they go to him for approval. So this man essentially is grading his own work. So Angie and I, we said we were going to disrupt this process because this process is disrupting the lives of so many people, number one. And then number two, I don't know any other job in the state of Florida that you could have gone to that day, showed up for work, and said, we're not going to do our job, but still expect to get paid. And that's essentially what we did by allowing the governor to draw his own maps and for us to relinquish our constitutional duty that we all swore an oath to uphold. So we wanted to disrupt the process. We need to turn the light on and let people at home know what the folks in Tallahassee are doing. And ultimately, that map that was approved diminished Black representation in Congress by 50%. And that's by taking away 2 seats in Congresswoman Val Demings and Congressman Al Lawson, ironically, who are our Congress people. So we felt even more obligation because Congresswoman Demings, that's the district that I live in. Congresswoman Lawson's district, that's the district that Angie lives in. So maybe it was divine intervention that God set it up that way. But no, we didn't tell anybody because we didn't want anybody to water it down, to try to talk us down, or try to oust us before anything happened. So Representative Henson was in on it because we needed Representative Henson's. Her and Senator Thompson are 2 members in the Florida House that have actually fought these fights in the 60s. They were civil rights leaders themselves. Representative Henson said on the floor that she don't just talk about Martin Luther King, she marched with Dr. King. So to hear the stories of these ladies and to be fighting these same fights seemingly in 2022, we knew we had to do something and we had to turn the light on. And I'm glad we did it. We have no regrets.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, obviously, a direct consequence out of all of that is that there are some lawsuits coming from different organizations and things like that. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think the end result of that is going to be, given how the legal process can sometimes be long and drawn out. Like, do you personally feel that there will be some fruit on your side in terms of fighting the maps?
I think it's really too early to tell, honestly. I do know that the governor put $1 million fiscal attachment in this bill in anticipation of litigation. So they know that these maps are unconstitutional and will be challenged in court, number one. I look back to 10 years ago, in 2012, when we had the census and redistricting issue go before the state Supreme Court. And it was 3 years after the litigation was filed that those maps were settled. So I am worried because, like I said, our representation will be diluted, will be diminished. Senator Bracey, I'm sorry, is a current candidate to replace Congresswoman Demings. And the maps totally have shifted and do not favor a candidate like Senator Bracey, who is so known to the residents here in West Orange County. So it's very concerning, but I know we have good groups like Equal Ground and some other groups across the state who are not letting up on this. And we're trying to build on this momentum from our actions, our active civil disobedience, our peaceful sit-in. We're trying to build on that momentum because people across the state are paying attention. I've been on calls with Uncle Luke down in Miami, for example, who's ready to mobilize and build on what we've done. So I know people are liking this to sit-ins from at lunch counters, or acts taken from civil rights leaders like John Lewis. But Angie and I, in no shape, form, or fashion, did this for any notoriety. But we did this to wake our people up. We have a important election that's going to take place this November for the governor's race. And if we are to gain any leverage and get anything done in Tallahassee, we know the likelihood of us flipping enough seats in the House or Senate to gain a majority is very unlikely. But we do have an opportunity to change who holds the power of the veto, where they'll have to come and we'll get some leverage, but they'll have to come to the table. They'll have to negotiate. They'll have to bargain. But right now, that's just not the case in Tallahassee. So we're putting all our eggs in this basket to try to wake our people up, make sure that they're registered. We see all these election bills that are going to purge voter lists or just to make it more difficult for people that look like us to vote. So it's our obligation, it's our duty as members of our community, as leaders in our community, and as elected officials to make sure that we do all we can to talk to people who have been left out and lost for so long. I was on the call last night with a lot of groups organizing an event for May 21st that we want to do simultaneously across the state in multiple cities. And I said, look, y'all, I love the church. I love the Lord. I'm a Christian. Trust me. But I'm not trying to replicate or duplicate any more souls to the polls events. I said, I'm trying to talk to the guys at the Washington Shore Shopping Center that's playing dominoes up under the tree. We need to talk to some of these party and club promoters that are doing day parties, or et cetera. But those are the people that we need to talk to. Super voters are going to vote. Folks who are going to church, they're 9 times out of 10, they know their status when you talk about their voter registration or what precinct they should go to. We need to talk to people who traditionally do not vote. And that's why we keep losing statewide elections by less than 1%.
Very well said. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is actually a very big concern, especially in a year like this, where it's more so like that off year. It's the turnout usually drops during the midterms compared to a presidential election. And one thing that folks need to remember is that the off-year elections are actually the more crucial elections, because the local and state elections are where things that directly affect you happen. Like those are where the decisions get made. So,
and can I just also add, I'm sorry, before you ask your next question, while we're on the maps, it wasn't easy for us to do that, right? That was a very bold. I don't think anything has ever happened like that in the Florida Capitol. They said it was unprecedented. They cut the Wi-Fi. They didn't want us to broadcast live. They didn't want people to know what's going on, right? But we had another something that I want to mention as to why these maps are so imperatively important right now to pay attention to, is because it's no secret that our current governor has aspirations and ambition to run for president. And he's doing that right now, and he's doing it on the backs of Black people. When you look at the CRT bill, even the abortion, the 15-week abortion bill, that's going to negatively impact Black women. Attacks on education, these attacks that he's, that he's forging on the backs of Black people is something to pay very close attention to. Why do I mention him running for president and all these things that he's doing that's seemingly attacking Black folks is because Republicans only need to pick up 5 congressional House seats to flip control. Right now, yes, we control Congress. Thank God for that, and that's the reason that we were able to, get Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmed, because we controlled the Senate. So when you talk about the power of Congress and them only needing 5 seats to flip it, he wants to be able to tout that he was responsible for flipping control of Congress. And what did he do? He made sure that he drew enough seats where they can literally pick seats right here in Florida, and he can be their champion. He can be their savior. So he's doing all this stuff because he wants to run for president. So we got to pay attention to that stuff too.
Got you. You guys heard that straight from Representative McCurdy. And I mean, guys, as always, I welcome you guys to leave comments below as well as you're watching this. And, we'll obviously this will be available for both myself and Representative McCurdy. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, leave them below. We'll love to join the conversation with you. All right. But in the meantime, we're going to take another quick commercial break, and we're going to come right back and talk a little more brass tacks. You guys know how I am. I like to talk the politics, but also get into the person. So we'll be doing that after this break. Stay tuned.
The Florida Lottery is proud to support education by contributing billions of dollars to Florida schools and awarding countless Bright Future scholarships, so Florida students can do more than just dream of a brighter future. They can create one. Learn more at FLAlottery.com.
Welcome back to the FNN Politics and Power series. I'm here with State Representative Travaris McCurdy, and we've been talking about the congressional maps and the sit-in. So thank you so much for breaking that down, Representative. Appreciate that. One of the things that I did want to talk about, you touched on the independent special districts already in terms of Disney. I wanted to get into that more general aspect that you do face as a Democrat in the Florida House that is a majority Republican House. You've often voiced frustrations of wanting to move bills through that you feel are a priority for your constituents. And sometimes you kind of hit a wall with that. So I wanted to ask you, how do you normally navigate that? How do you normally work to get some of your constituents' priorities passed through the House, through the Senate, and hopefully being signed into law? How do you normally get it done?
Well, you got to be strategic to be effective, right? And you have to have relationships with folks. So, I mean, I understand the game, right? That's because I've been around, I've been a student of the game, and I've studied. So I know that a lot of times people in Tallahassee, it's all about taking credit for stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't really care about credit. I care about results for my people. So my name doesn't have to be the title sponsor on anything, right? So I will talk to a member to see if I can piggyback. I will talk to a Republican to see if there's some ways, some issues that we agree on, that we see eye to eye, and if I can insert an amendment or piggyback something on their bill. Can I tag along? This is the idea I had that I was going to run as a standalone bill, but can I incorporate it into your bill? Mm-hmm. So those are some ways that you can be strategic. You can also work with your Senate counterpart, which was Senator Bracy. Obviously, someone would replace him because he's running for Congress. And me being his former staffer, so we had a great working relationship. And me being a student of the Senate, you need to have relationships with appropriation staff. It's not just the members, but it's the folks that work behind the scenes that make these that make the process work. Because if I need to find a way to get an appropriation to get funding down to my district for a particular project, those are ways that you can be effective. And as long as you're not looking to have your name broadcast all over the place, you can work to find ways to be strategic and to be effective to bring good things down and resources home for your district. Another thing is I try to remind people, folks at home really don't pay attention to all the bills that you pass or even propose. People like to money talks, right? Money talks and results. So when a person calls my office, I pride myself in being responsive. I have great staff, and we really take pride in responding to our constituent issues, because That's where we can win. People may not always remember or know about what we go through, what we fight in Tallahassee, but people will remember if we answer the phone when they call, or if we got them a response, whether or not it was favorable. But we will work diligently to get your response in a timely fashion. And that's working with state agencies across the board. So whether it's a loved one that's incarcerated in state prison that you want to get relocated closer to you, whether you're having issues with receiving your unemployment, whether you having issues with receiving your food stamps, whatever it is that's dealing with a state agency, people know they can call my office. I even get people that call my office outside of my district because, word of mouth, that word of mouth is a real thing. So if we weren't doing a good job, the word would be out to don't call that office if you need something. But I think I think we've done such a good job of being responsive that people have confidence in calling my office, whether or not they live in my district.
Awesome, and thank you for that. We're kind of wrapping things up now, but where can people connect with you? What's the most effective way for a constituent to get a hold of you?
Well, you can always call us at 407-445-5254. That's the number to our district office, which is at 1803 Park Center Drive in Orlando, Florida, 32855, right behind Valencia West Campus. And you can find me on social media, man. People stay in my DM, and I don't mind. However you can reach me. So you can find me on all platforms at Rep McCurdy, REPMCCURDY, or Google me. You can find me. Trust me. I try to make myself accessible. People talk to me, stop me in the Publix or at the dollar store. But I'm here to serve. I love what I do. And I think it's a privilege and an honor to be able to serve the district that I was born and raised in. So find me anywhere or call Mellissa, and she'll make sure to connect us. I'm sure she will. So
absolutely. And by the way, I love how you slid the dollar store part in there. I was like, wow.
I go to the dollar store too.
You know what I mean? Our elected officials are human, guys. Like, they are approachable. Approachable.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us here at FNN Politics and Power, Representative McCurdy. And, you're always welcome back to the show, especially if and when you have legislative updates that you want to share with your community. We always know that you are welcome here.
Well, I appreciate you. You've always been a great partner, a great friend. I know we were together a couple months ago doing the redistricting town hall together. So
yep.
Thank you for continuing to give us an opportunity to speak to our constituents, our residents, and thank you for always educating our people. So good luck, kudos to you, and let me know if we can ever be of assistance. I'm always here for you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for us at Politics and Power. Of course, you guys know we are live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to catch the show. If you have any questions, if there are any elected officials or community leaders that you would like me to interview, please let me know. Just shoot me an email at info@floridanationalnews.com, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. And of course, guys, you saw that we run ads on our show. So if you or someone has a business and you want to run ads on a platform, you want to be able to reach a greater audience, we here at Florida National News are here for you to make that happen. So if you want to do that and start the conversation, just shoot us an email at ads@floridanationalnews.com to find out more and to get started. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for tuning in. That is a wrap from me, Mellissa Thomas, coming to you for the FNN Politics and Power series. Have a great rest of your Thursday.